Is the world on the brink of a devastating war? A war that could rip apart West Asia and drag the entire world with it. Because the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is talking about erasing Iran from the map, while Iran is answering with a threat to set the American world on fire. Amid all of this, American fighter jets and warships appear to be mobilizing toward West Asia. The question is, if war comes, who burns first? Iran? America? Or America's closest allies, Qatar, Israel, or the entire region? Because this is not hypothetical. Tehran has made it clear that any action taken by Washington against Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, will lead to devastating outcomes.
We do not pay attention to Trump's bluster. He knows that if any hand is raised to assault our leader, we will not only cut off that hand decisively and courageously, and this is not just rhetoric, but we will set their world on fire. We will strip them of any security and leave no safe place for them.
The warning comes just days after Trump publicly called for an end to Khamenei's nearly four-decade rule. In an interview, Donald Trump responded to questions about the assassination threats. The US president said that he had given clear instructions to wipe Iran off the face of earth if anything were to happen to him. That threat did not come alone. It arrived as American military power has begun moving toward the region. Ship tracking data shows that the USS Abraham Lincoln has passed through the state of Malacca, which is the strategic waterway linking the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean. According to a US Navy official, the aircraft carrier and 3 accompanying destroyers are now heading west. The ship's current position in the Indian Ocean places it only days away from moving into West Asia. At the same time, online flight trackers report that F-15E Strike Eagle fighter jets, accompanied by aerial refueling aircraft, have flown from England toward West Asia. Behind the scenes, pressure inside the White House continues to grow. The Wall Street Journal reports that Donald Trump is pushing his aides to design decisive military options against Iran. Now, this, remember, comes only days after he allegedly cancelled planned strikes on the Islamic Republic. Citing American officials, the report states that the president repeatedly uses the word decisive when describing the outcome that he wants from an American attack, leading to senior officials at the White House and the Pentagon drawing up an array of options before the US president. Some of those options, as per a report, include toppling the Iranian regime, while other plans focus on narrower targets, including strikes on facilities linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Officials quoted by the newspaper said that the president has not ruled out military action, though they admit that they do not know what he will ultimately decide. And this brings us back to the original question. If this confrontation turns into an open conflict, where could Iran strike back? Would Tehran target American warships and bases directly? Could Israel, which is Washington's closest ally, become a prime target? Or would Iran choose pro-American strongholds across West Asia? Could Qatar, which is home to one of the largest US military bases in the region, find itself in the crosshairs? Could Gulf states hosting the American troops suddenly turn into a front line? For now, warships keep on moving, fighter jets keep on flying, while leaders on both sides keep giving each other ultimatums.
Focus remains on what Donald Trump, the US president, will be saying in his speech.
We're almost midway through the World Economic Forum. There were protests that took place just a couple of days ago, anti-WEF and also anti-Trump protests.
On day 3 of the World Economic Forum, there is a very important session called Can India Become the Third Largest Economy?
US President Donald Trump took aim at Europe during a speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Trump said that the continent is not heading in the right direction. He criticized Europe's political and economic trajectory, warning that current policies are hurting growth and security, even as he stressed on the importance of transatlantic ties. He also revisited his controversial comments on Greenland, saying that the United States saved Greenland and again framed the Arctic territory as strategically vital to American security interests. He also justified his action in Venezuela by saying that he helped the South American nation.
Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America. In Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody and say I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good. But it's not heading in the right direction. Venezuela has been an amazing place for so many years, but then they went bad with their policies. 20 years ago, it was a great country, and now it's got problems, but we're helping them. And those 50 million barrels, we're going to be splitting up with them, and they'll be making more money than they've made in a long time. Venezuela is going to do fantastically well.
WION's correspondent at Davos, Siddhant is joining us live on the broadcast at the moment. Siddhant, more than 1 hour of Donald Trump's address, the entire world had its eyes on what the US president will say. And my God, what a speech. He's doubled down on his desire to acquire Greenland, and he's also threatened NATO and Europe. He went from I love Europe to NATO is a loser and United States got nothing from NATO.
Well, it was clearly the big piece of ice that was the big story from his speech. In fact, yes, the entire world was glued to television when the US president was making his speech. But here in Davos, everyone went into huddle. All the meetings pre-scheduled, scheduled, all were cancelled, postponed, preponed. That is the plan that was being done because it was the big man who was speaking. And on expected lines, he upped his rhetoric on Greenland, something that was essentially not new. But for European leaders present here, it was a cause of anxiety. In fact, he mentioned about how he is the peacemaker. He naturally, it was expected, mentioned about India, Pakistan in his speech as well. Even though India has rejected Donald Trump's claim, he, of course, made a lot of statements, even saying that US gave back Greenland to Denmark after World War II, something that is being fact-checked by everyone right now on social media. This is a speech that can go for a lot of fact-check, but the reality is whatever he says, he usually implements, and this is something that European leaders are worried about. European leaders have been showing a brave face, but for them to stand up to Donald Trump means a pending order that has been created after World War II, that has been decades in making, but it will take decades to essentially go back foot on it.
Absolutely, Siddhant. This is the kind of order that Donald Trump has been trying to disrupt when he says that we have to, get more from NATO and from the European Union because they have used United States over the past several years. And like you were talking about fact-checking the US president's speech, one of the things that he mentioned was that he's going to be meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. As of now, Ukrainian officials say that Zelensky is not present at Davos and he's at Kiev. But if that does happen in the next few days, can we see some sort of a peace announcement, some sort of a deal being reached?
Well, I do not know how it will happen because Donald Trump leaves tomorrow by midday here, almost 12 hours, just over 12 hours he'll be staying here. For the Ukrainian president to come here,
there are protocols, procedures. He can, of course, break the protocols, but there are questions if the Ukrainian president is keen to meet him, because obviously he'll make an occasion out of it. And when it comes to fact-checking, many times he even confused Iceland and Greenland. This is something that Icelanders must be closely watching. But tomorrow will be a big day in terms of not only his bilateral meetings, some of which he has been claiming, but signing of the Gaza Board of Peace Charter. Many countries have affirmed that they will be present. Pakistan has confirmed short while ago. India has been mum on it, but tomorrow will be a big day on that aspect.
Absolutely. Siddhant, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Let's wait and watch what happens tomorrow. As far as today is concerned, Donald Trump had the entire world glued to the television. Thanks very much, Siddhant, for joining us at the moment. And with that, let's also tell you how Day 3 of the World Economic Forum in Davos there has happened today, and WION has been bringing you all the key developments from this global summit. We spoke exclusively with several high-profile dignitaries on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. Wikipedia founder Jimmy Wales spoke exclusively with WION, and he shared that open and independent access to knowledge will be critical in a rapidly changing digital world. He's also lauded India's contribution to the global digital revolution. Meanwhile, Maldives' Economic Development and Trade Minister Mohammed Saeed described India as a strategic partner. Take a listen to these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, India is very exciting. I mean, I think the progress, when I think about the early days of Wikipedia, and India 25 years ago was far behind where it is today. The progress that's been made with prosperity, with economics, with IT infrastructure, it's enormous, and it just seems poised to continue in that direction. Indians are so entrepreneurial, and there's such a real spirit of get it done, that I think we're going to see a lot coming from India in the next 25 years.
Several flights in operation, and a lot of growth from India as well. And I think, like you mentioned to me, it's a few hours of travel. And after Hanimadu come into operation, President is also, not only north but south and other, in areas where resorts are.
Now here's something that you don't hear daily. Nearly 400 millionaires and billionaires from around the world are calling on governments to raise taxes on the super rich, warning that extreme wealth is corrupting democracy, distorting politics and deepening global inequality. This open letter has been released to coincide with the World Economic Forum taking place in Switzerland's Davos, where political leaders, corporate executives and some of the world's wealthiest people are meeting this week. Among the signatories are actor Mark Ruffalo, musician Brian Eno, and philanthropist Abigail Disney, all arguing that unchecked wealth is buying political influence and hollowing out democratic systems. In unusually blunt language, the letter states that a small group of ultra-wealthy oligarchs have, quote, bought up our democracies, taken over governments, gagged media freedoms, and accelerated the breakdown of the planet, unquote. The signatories also say that the widening gap between the super rich and everybody else is no longer just an economic issue, but a direct threat to democracy, social cohesion, and climate action. This call comes as new data show just how stark the wealth divide has become. A poll conducted for the patriotic Millionaires group found that 77% of millionaires in G20 countries believe that extremely wealthy individuals are buying political influence. Nearly two-thirds of those surveyed said that they support higher taxes on the super rich, so that money can fund public services. In fact, just 17% opposed this. More than 60% also said extreme wealth now poses a serious threat to democracy. The open letter also comes at a time where wealth and power have become increasingly intertwined worldwide. According to Forbes, the US President Donald Trump assembled the richest cabinet in American history following his re-election, with a combined net worth estimated at $7.5 billion. Meanwhile, development charity Oxfam says that billionaire wealth surged at a record pace in 2025, pushing the global number of billionaires past 3,000 for the first time. Oxfam also warned that the richest 1% now own 3 times more wealth than the world's total public wealth combined, calling this wealth gap obscene and unsustainable. The open letter's authors say even many of the wealthy now recognize that the system is breaking, arguing that progressive taxation is no longer radical but necessary to preserve democratic institutions. As world leaders debate economic growth and stability in Davos, the message is clear: tax extreme wealth or risk letting inequality undermine democracy itself. And coming up on Gravitas next, Seoul has claimed that North Korea is producing nuclear material annually for up to 20 weapons. More on this up ahead. A look at Bangladesh as well, where minority attacks have been downplayed by Mohammad Yunus, but Hindu cricketer Liton Das says that he is unsafe. Details just in a bit. And an Austrian cow is defying definitions and becoming self-reliant. One year ago, Donald Trump returned to the White House as the 47th President of the United States of America. He came to power by promising to bring peace around the world and to make America great again. 12 months later, the numbers show a presidency unlike any other in modern American history. By January this year, Trump had signed 228 executive orders, which is more than any president in a single year. Only Franklin D. Roosevelt and Herbert Hoover, whose presidency spanned the Great Depression and the Second World War, passed more orders. So executive power has become the defining feature of Trump 2.0. From day one, immigration and national security dominated his agenda. Trump declared a national emergency at the southern border, expanded detention powers, and pushed United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement to work closely with local police as well as the military. And the result? Well, ICE arrests surged from around 300 a day to over 1,000. The detained population hit a record high of nearly 70,000. Deportations also more than doubled, even as people with no criminal records remained the largest group in custody. But this aggressive approach has come at a cost. Deaths in ICE custody have spiked, making 2025 one of the deadliest years for immigration enforcement in decades, fueling outrage and nationwide protests. And these protests have exploded. Since Trump's inauguration last year, researchers estimate more than 33,000 demonstrations across the country have taken place, which is nearly 4 times the number seen during his first term. One rally alone, the No Kings protest, drew millions, becoming one of the largest single-day mobilizations in American history. Well, then came the tariffs. Tariffs became his weapon of choice. The US imposed sweeping import taxes on allies and adversaries alike, pushing effective tariff rates to levels not seen in almost a century. Revenues surged. Customs duties jumped 192%, bringing in nearly $287 billion. But for ordinary Americans, prices remained stubbornly high. Inflation barely eased, while staples like beef and coffee surged by double digits, forcing the White House to quietly roll back some of the tariffs. Foreign policy, too, became transactional. Donald Trump has used tariffs to force the hand of other countries, like the 50% tariff on India for its Russian oil purchases. And now, he's threatening tariffs on countries opposing America's proposed takeover of Greenland, openly linking trade penalties to geopolitical loyalties. These moves have strained America's ties with its allies and deepened global unease about Washington's direction. At home, approval ratings have slipped. As per Gallup, Trump's approval now sits at 36%, which is down sharply from the start of his term. Trust in the government has fallen to its lowest level since records began in 1960. But as the world is trying to come to terms with Washington's new policies, the 47th president himself has pocketed billions of money. As per investigations by multiple news organizations, Trump has personally made at least $1.4 billion since returning to office. And that figure is a minimum. The Trump administration has pursued more than 20 overseas projects, often requiring cooperation from foreign governments, that the administration later treated favorably. And as a result, the family has reportedly earned hundreds of millions through cryptocurrency ventures, allowing foreign and domestic actors to funnel money directly into Trump-linked entities, often with little transparency. Major corporations have paid over $90 million in legal settlements to Trump since his re-election. Remember, Qatar even gifted the president a $400 million Boeing aircraft, which Trump has said that he plans to keep after leaving office. So in total, Donald Trump's gains equal more than 16,000 times the median US household income. His supporters argue that he's a shrewd deal maker, delivering results, but critics warn that this is something entirely, absolutely selfish. This is the monetization of the presidency itself. As America heads toward midterm elections in November this year, remember the wars that America directly or indirectly triggered abroad continue to rage, with no end in sight. And at home, protests grow louder. Trust in institutions continues to erode. The cost of living keeps rising and political divisions continue to deepen. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Trump 2.0's 1 year in power. All right, moving on. A massive Russian aerial assault has left Ukrainians in Kiev battling a deadly winter crisis, with temperatures dropping to minus 10 degrees Celsius. The latest wave of Russian drones, ballistic and cruise missiles targeted multiple cities, including Kiev, Dnipro in central Ukraine, and Odessa in the south. In Kiev, air raid alerts lasted through most of the night as missiles and drones closed in on the capital. By morning, more than 5,600 residential buildings were without heating. Large parts of the city also lost power and water, including the Ukrainian parliament.
In Kiev alone, by evening, more than 1 million consumers will be without electricity. A significant number of buildings are without heat, more than 4,000 apartment buildings. All efforts must be directed toward alleviating the situation.
Kiev mayor sounded further alarm. He said that some residents now receive just 1 or 2 hours of electricity in one day. He's also urging those with alternative accommodation to temporarily leave the city to ease pressure on the fragile energy network.
If you doesn't have a chance, we do it everything to give the services. And we doesn't talk about evacuation, but if you have a chance temporarily to move outside of the city in this critical cold period of time, please do that. Before last attack, the population in our hometown was 3.6 million people. 600 people leave the city.
As strikes continued, Kiev's residents took shelter in makeshift emergency tents set up near affected high-rise buildings. The tents provided hot water, charging stations, and a brief escape from the bitter cold as families with children huddled around generators and electric heaters. Meanwhile, Ukrainian energy officials confirmed that external power has been restored to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Hours after a complete loss of off-site electricity raised international alarm. In a related development, Russia reported 13 people injured in a drone attack in its southern region. Now, diplomatic efforts are underway as U.S. President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff said that he will travel to Moscow this Thursday alongside Jared Kushner for talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, Trump has said that he will meet with Zelensky in Davos on Thursday. Previously, Russia and American envoys held a meeting on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum at Davos. This meeting was said to be constructive.
Dialogue is constructive, and more people understand the fairness of Russian position.
Meanwhile, Ukraine now faces a grim test as winter deepens and its energy infrastructure remains under sustained attack.
Good day.
Shifting our focus to India now, where after 2 days of unrest and chaos in Assam's Kokrajhar district, peace has returned to the area. People living in shelter homes have started returning to their homes. The unrest began on Monday night after a mob allegedly attacked a group of men on suspicion of cattle theft and set ablaze their vehicle. At least one person died in this incident, while other occupants received severe burn injuries. Tensions escalated further on Tuesday after people from both sides reportedly clashed. Following this incident, Rapid Action Force has been deployed in the sensitive areas of Kokrajhar. It has conducted patrolling with district administration in Karigaon and its nearby locations. Earlier today, meanwhile, a flag march was conducted as well, and a meeting of the Peace Committee was held.
After the incident, peace is returning to the area. People living in shelter homes are preparing to return home. Force has been deployed in vulnerable areas.
According to sources, internet services have been suspended in Kokrajhar and Chirang districts, and prohibitory orders have been imposed to control the situation. So far, the police have detained 18 people. 1 month, that's how long it took for a small settlement of Israeli settlers to go from unauthorized to fully legal in the occupied West Bank. Recently, Israeli settlers celebrated a major milestone in West Bank as a previously unauthorized outpost became a fully recognized settlement in record time. The site, which is now called Yatziv, sits just south of Jerusalem, overlooking the Palestinian town of Beit Sahur. For Palestinians, this is a permanent loss of land and cultural identity, and this has become routine across the occupied Palestinian region. Over the years, plans for Palestinian infrastructure on the hilltop region, including a children's hospital, have been reportedly and repeatedly blocked, clearing the way for settlement expansion. Israeli soldiers have been directly involved, helping residents connect water and other services while providing security on the hilltop. Remember, these settlements are widely considered illegal under international law. Critics say that they pose a serious obstacle to any potential two-state solution. In East Jerusalem, meanwhile, Israeli bulldozers began demolishing the headquarters of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, or the UNRWA. The United Nations called the demolition unprecedented, a violation of international law and a direct threat to Palestinian refugee services. Israel, however, claims that the compound is state property and that the demolitions were carried out legally, citing concerns that the site had been misused by militants. The move has sparked international condemnation, with Jordan, Saudi Arabia and the United Nations urging Israel to halt the action and restore the compound. Remember, the UNRWA has for long provided vital services, including health, education, and refugee registration for generations of Palestinians displaced since 1948. Critics say that these demolitions risk erasing not just buildings, but Palestinian refugee identity itself. The fast-track settlement approvals, along with demolition of offices that aid Palestinians, just highlights the rising tensions in West Bank and Jerusalem as Israel continues to expand its presence in the disputed territories. Australia has moved with speed and with force after one of the darkest attacks in its modern history. 2 months after gunmen stormed a Jewish festival on Sydney's Bondi Beach and killed 15 people, the Australian Parliament has now passed sweeping new laws to crack down on hate crimes and tighten gun control. Both houses of the Parliament approved 2 separate bills, one targeting hate speech and radicalization, the other aimed at firearms. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese told lawmakers that the attackers carried more than ideology. They carried weapons. And he said that the government must fight both the hatred and the weapons behind the violence. The new hate crime laws sharply increase penalties for people who incite violence or promote extremist ideas. The reforms create harsher charges for preachers, community leaders, and adults who try to radicalize children. The legislation also allows authorities to formally ban hate groups and block or cancel visas for individuals suspected of promoting racial or religious hatred. For the first time, organizations that fall short of Australia's terrorism definition can still be outlawed if they operate as extremist networks. On guns, the government will launch a national buyback program, tighten controls on weapon imports, and widen background checks for firearm licenses. Intelligence agencies will now play a role in screening gun permit applicants. The agency reflects a growing and concerning statistic. Australia now holds more than 4 million registered firearms, more than at any time since the Port Arthur massacre back in 1996, the tragedy that reshaped the country's gun laws. The Parliament passed the legislation days before a national day of mourning for the Bondi victims. The Australian government had originally planned to reconvene in February. Instead, it returned early to take measures that prevent incidents like the worst mass shooting that Australia faced in nearly 3 decades. Australia has made it clear it will not tolerate extremism, anti-Semitism or easy access to deadly weapons. Turning our attention to the Korean peninsula, where Seoul has issued a stark warning that North Korea's nuclear program is accelerating faster than the world can contain it. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung says that Pyongyang is now producing enough nuclear material every single year to build as many as 20 nuclear weapons. He says that the regime already holds dozens of warheads and shows no signs of slowing down. North Korea first tested a nuclear bomb in 2006, defying the United Nations bans. Nearly 2 decades later, President Lee says that the threat has grown far beyond the Korean peninsula. He warns that the North is steadily upgrading long-range missiles designed to reach the American mainland. In fact, Lee says that the regime's goal is clear: secure a nuclear stockpile large enough to protect itself and pair it with intercontinental missiles capable of threatening not just the US, but the entire world. And the South Korean president also highlighted dangers about export. Lee has warned that once North Korea builds more weapons material than it needs, it could begin selling it beyond its borders, turning a regional crisis into a global emergency. The South Korean leader says halting nuclear production, freezing missile development, and blocking overseas transfers would benefit every nation. He says that he has raised these concerns directly with American President Trump and the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Since taking office in June last year, Lee has called for talks with Pyongyang without preconditions, but the North has rejected Seoul's offers. Lee now looks towards Washington. He says that Trump, who met with Kim Jong-un 3 times during his first term, may be the only leader with the influence to reopen the path toward denuclearization. All right, shifting our focus now. Japanese ambassador to India, Ono Kechi, was seen enjoying biryani the Indian way. The ambassador was seen eating biryani with hands, and he said that it tastes even better when it's eaten by hand. Take a look.
Yes. Yes. Okay? Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Shifting our focus now, water is central to our very existence. Looming water shortage is not just a crisis anymore. A new United Nations report has shattered all assumptions about the gravity of the situation. According to the UN University Institute for Water, Environment and Health, decades of overuse, pollution and climate change have pushed many water systems beyond recovery. The world has reached a point where previous levels of water supply cannot be realistically restored. The report has called for recognizing this phase as water bankruptcy. The numbers indicate a serious problem. 70% of major aquifers are rapidly deleting. More than half of the world's large lakes have lost water since the early 90s. Similarly, glaciers which store water have declined by 30% since the 70s. Over the past 5 decades, the world has lost nearly 410 million hectares of natural wetlands, which is equivalent to 7 times the area of the United Kingdom. The loss incurred from this is estimated at $5.1 trillion, which is the combined annual GDP of 135 poorest countries globally. This has devastating consequences for people at large. At present, remember, close to 75% of the world's population lives in countries that face high demand of water with limited supply. Billions still don't have access to safe drinking water and improved sanitation facilities. As per the UN report, 4 billion people encounter severe water scarcity for at least 30 days in 1 year. The report's author, Kaveh Madani, described water bankruptcy as an issue related to justice. He highlighted that the impact of this crisis falls disproportionately on poorer sections of the society.
We must act because water bankruptcy is a justice and security issue. The cost of the hydrological overshoot that the world is facing fall disproportionately on those who can least afford it: smallholder farmers, indigenous communities, and the urban poor. If we continue to manage these failures as temporary crises and with short-term fixes, we will only deepen the ecological damage and fuel social conflicts.
But quick fix solutions remain elusive. The UN has called for water bankruptcy management, a deliberate effort to prevent further irreversible damage. It has advocated a right to water as a guarantee, whereby every household gets access to water. The report also advised governments to incentivize cultivation of less water-intensive crops. As far as governments are concerned, it suggested a strategic shift to decouple economic prosperity from ever-growing water use. With 400 incidents of water-related conflicts reported across the globe in 2024 alone, a new water agenda is clearly the need of the hour. Is the combination of falling vaccination rates and misinformation about vaccine safety pushing the United States toward losing its measles-free status? That question is gaining urgency as South Carolina reports a sharp surge in measles cases. State health officials say that at least 88 new infections have been confirmed in the recent days, bringing the total number of cases since October to 646. The outbreak, which is now the largest in South Carolina in decades, is centered in Spartanburg, a town of about 39,000 people in the northwest of the state. More than 500 people, including students and staff across 15 schools, are currently in quarantine after being exposed to the virus. This virus has also spread to college campuses. Dozens of students at the Clemson University and Anderson University are now in quarantine. Measles, remember, is one of the most contagious diseases in the world. It spreads through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Health experts say that up to 90% of unvaccinated people nearby can become infected after exposure. There is no scientific treatment for measles, and the virus can cause serious complications, including pneumonia, brain swelling, hospitalization, and death. The US had declared measles eliminated back in the year 2000, meaning the virus was no longer spreading continuously within the country. For years after that milestone, cases were rare and mostly linked to unvaccinated travelers who contracted the virus abroad. And those cases generally did not lead to widespread outbreaks. 2 doses of the MMR vaccine, which protects against measles, mumps, and rubella, are proven safe and about 97% effective at preventing infection and severe disease. But health experts say that falling vaccination coverage is the primary driver of this current crisis in the US. Over the past 12 months, America has recorded more than 2,000 measles cases, the worst outbreaks in decades. Texas alone reported more than 700 cases in 2025, with 3 deaths as well. Utah and Arizona have also seen hundreds of infections. Experts warn that the recent changes to vaccine recommendations have created confusion about vaccine availability. The authority to modify the vaccine schedule belongs to the head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and not the Congress. The recent changes were not based on new scientific publications, data, or information, and the consequences are not just theoretical. Children are getting sick, some are being hospitalized, and some are even dying. Other countries offer a warning. The UK lost its measles eradication status in 2019. Canada followed. And now, with sustained transmission and declining immunization rates, the US appears to be on the same path, and it could lose its measles-free status after an international review, which is expected this spring. Health officials say that the situation remains reversible, but only if vaccination rates rise quickly. And without that, measles, which is a disease once declared defeated in America, may once again become a permanent and deadly presence. Meet Veronica, a 13-year-old Austrian cow who is reminding all of us that intelligence doesn't always look like a human mind. A clear winner when it comes to being self-reliant, Veronica has been doing something which no cow has ever been officially recorded doing before. When she has an itch, she doesn't wait for a rub against the fence or a human to help her. Instead, she picks up a brush or a stick, positions it carefully, and scratches herself. And this isn't just any random act. Researchers observed that Veronica used different parts of the same tool for different jobs. The rough bristles of the brush for her back, the smooth handle for more sensitive areas like her belly. And this behavior, as per researchers, meets the scientific definition of tool use, something which is usually seen in chimpanzees, crows, and dolphins, but not cattle. Veronica is challenging the assumption that cows have limited perceptions. Veronica is displaying problem-solving skills, and researchers say that her environment might be the key. Veronica isn't confined to a factory farm. She has space, time, and objects to interact with, giving her the opportunity to discover solutions on her own. And science is literally scratching the surface. All right, moving on. She's inspired a new generation to believe that space is not a distant dream. Sunita Williams, a trailblazer in space, has finally retired after a 27-year-long career as a NASA astronaut. While she officially retired on the 27th of December last year, NASA made the formal announcement now. Commenting on her career, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman lauded her path-breaking journey as an astronaut. He highlighted that her work laid the foundation for missions to the moon and Mars. And in her first reaction post her retirement, Sunita Williams described space as her favorite place. She expressed her excitement at NASA and its partner agencies in taking next steps of exploration to the moon and Mars. And now let's take a look at her absolutely spectacular journey. Born in Ohio to an Indian father and Slovenian mother, Sunita completed her bachelor's in physical science from the US Naval Academy back in 1987, after which she was commissioned into the Navy. 2 years later, she was designated as a naval aviator. During her career, she logged over 3,000 flight hours in over 30 different aircraft. She was deployed in Red Sea and the Persian Gulf as part of the Helicopter Combat Support Squadron. Sunita started her career as an astronaut in 1998. She was part of 3 missions aboard the International Space Station, logging 608 days in space, which is the second longest time spent in space by a NASA astronaut. The astronaut also completed 9 spacewalks, totaling 62 hours and 6 minutes. This ranks as the longest spacewalk time by a woman. Sunita Williams became the first person in space to run a marathon and complete a triathlon as well. While her final space mission aboard Boeing Starliner began in June 2024, it was extended to over 9 months owing to technical issues, and she finally returned to Earth in March last year. She served in numerous other roles as well, including the Deputy Chief of NASA's Astronaut Office. Sunita helped establish a helicopter training platform to prepare astronauts for future moon landings. In recognition of her outstanding achievements, Sunita Williams received India's second highest civilian award, the Padma Bhushan, in 2008. When she was stuck in the ISS last year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had penned a heartfelt letter to the Indian origin astronaut, where he described her as India's illustrious daughter and prayed for her safe return to Earth. All right, shifting our focus now, German manufacturers Audi has unveiled their first F1 car ahead of the 2026 season. The grand new livery with silver, black and red shines as a standout so far. Meanwhile, Haas has also revealed their new car to mark the beginning of the new era with Toyota in style. Take a look. On Tuesday, Bangladesh captain Liton Das claimed that his team is still in the dark over the T20 World Cup. Well, that's not the case anymore. The International Cricket Council has given Bangladesh an ultimatum: play your matches in India as scheduled or get replaced by some other team. The ICC arrived at this decision at today's board meeting. This meeting was called to discuss the impasse with the Bangladesh board over the refusal to play their World Cup matches in India. The board meeting was attended by the directors of all full members, including the Bangladesh Cricket Board President Aminul Islam Bulbul. The majority of directors voted in favor of a replacement if Bangladesh did not budge. It's been understood only Pakistan backed the BCB. After the meeting, the ICC asked the Bangladesh Cricket Board to inform the country's interim government of their decision. Bangladesh has been given 1 day to come back with their final answer. If Bangladesh remain firm on their stand, then Scotland is likely to replace them in Group C at the World Cup. The ultimatum by the ICC comes a day after the PCB offered their backing to the Bangladesh Cricket Board. They also informed all of the other boards that they stand by Bangladesh, but the timing of PCB's email does raise eyebrows. And PCB chief Mohsin Naqvi was also part of this meeting that took place, in which the decision was communicated to the Bangladesh Cricket Board. The PCB has not publicly commented on the matter so far. Bangladesh has refused to travel to India for the T20 World Cup, citing security concerns. Remember, Bangladesh remained firm on its stance despite several meetings with the ICC over the past few days. Cricket's global governing body insists that the original schedule must go ahead as planned, with less than 3 weeks remaining for the tournament to begin. Now, this entire saga began when Bangladesh pacer Mustafizur Rahman was removed from the Kolkata Knight Riders squad in the IPL following a BCCI directive. The Indian Cricket Board did not provide an official reason for the directive, but it came amid escalating diplomatic tensions between India and Bangladesh. India, remember, has repeatedly flagged concerns about crimes against the Hindu minority community in Bangladesh. The country's captain, Liton Das, who is Hindu, said that players are in the dark about Bangladesh's participation at the World Cup. And remember, Liton Das had earlier refused to comment about the situation as well. But now it seems that his team might just miss the tournament altogether. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. But as always, we will keep getting you news and updates from across the world with in-depth analysis. For today, thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye. Good night.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
From strong human development to resilient infrastructure, Kerala has built a model that balances growth with stability. Today, Kerala is opening wider to the world, welcoming global partnerships across technology, industry, tourism, and sustainable development, offering robust opportunities. At the World Economic Forum 2026 in Davos, Kerala steps onto the world stage.
Kerala is the right destination for responsible investment, also for knowledge-based industries.
Invest in the future. Invest in Kerala. Watch WION at Davos 2026.
Global power dynamics are changing. It is no longer just about oil or tariffs. In 2026, critical minerals will reshape geopolitics. Resource-rich nations are now strategic battlegrounds. Join us as we discuss what's at stake in this tech-based quest for dominance. With Subhash Chandra Garg, former Finance Secretary India, Rishabh Jain, Fellow, Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and Matthew L. Wald, Energy Analyst, only on WION.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.